So, Doctor Who games. Now, these are things that have existed in the past, of course, but should there be a proper dedicated Doctor Who game, the way that we see some of the Marvel characters now, the likes of Spider-Man, Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy getting their own games, should Doctor Who have that sort of treatment? And also, what would a Doctor Who game even look like? But before we properly get into this video, guys, as you are probably aware, I want 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you haven't already and you do enjoy the content, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and I would love you forever. Anyway, getting back to it, a Doctor Who game. Now, like I said, we've had quite a few Doctor Who games over the years. Some have been okay, some have been not so good. And I think overall, none of them have really been amazing, have they? Now, of course, I haven't actually played all of the Doctor Who games available, probably because they didn't really interest me, or I didn't even know that they existed, or I just couldn't afford them, or didn't have the proper console for them, or the game doesn't exist now, or it's not easy to get. But either way, looking at some of the previous Doctor Who games, it wouldn't actually fill me with hope when it comes to them developing a fully dedicated Doctor Who game. And the thing is, like I said, what would it even look like? Because I think the problem is with Doctor Who as a franchise, the way that it works as a show, I don't think it necessarily translates very well into a game format. I think the closest that we ever got to a proper Doctor Who game that still feels relatively like the show and wasn't total shit was probably the adventure games. Was it the adventure games? It was the ones that came out early on in the Matt Smith era. Those games for me, they were probably the closest representation of how a Doctor Who game would look and feel and work and still feel like it is an episode of Doctor Who. I think the major issue is when it comes to games like this, as in based off of a TV show or a movie, you run the risk of losing the fundamentals of that show or movie. And also I think with the mechanics of most games, you want to be doing stuff. You want to feel like you are interacting. You don't want it to feel like you are literally just watching an episode or a movie of whatever it might be. When you compare it to some of the comic book franchises, such as your Spider-Mans or your Injustice or whatever it might be, the difference is because they will typically have a fighting mechanic, it adds a new layer, and yet it doesn't feel like it's moved too far away from what the original source material does. Because with superheroes, yeah, they're gonna fight supervillains and, you know, street level criminals. So you can add new fighting moves and learn new skills and unlock abilities and gadgets and web shooters in Spider-Man's case, whatever it might be. Or you just go full on, like, fighter with something like Injustice. With Doctor Who, you can't really do that because the Doctor as a character isn't a fighter. Now, yes, the Doctor has used violence in the past, and I think if you were going to make a Doctor Who game where you were to incorporate the fighting aspect, then it would have to be a Pertwee era one, which would be awesome, by the way. However, again, it still isn't a fundamental element of the Doctor's character. And so that straight away just rules out an entire genre slash subcategory of game that you just couldn't incorporate really without it feeling like you've betrayed the source material. You see some of the games that we've had where it's very much based on puzzles and it's like you've got to solve this and you've got to use your sonic screwdriver. I think, what was it called now? The Wii game, was it Return to Earth? Something like that. Problem with a game like that, it was incredibly shit. And I think the reason why it was not so good is because it felt very simplistic and very repetitive. And again, with Doctor Who, you would run the risk of that again. Even to a certain extent, the adventure games sometimes felt like that, in my opinion. You know, rewire something or point a sonic screwdriver at this or locate this item. Like, these are generic sort of game missions, but often they are side missions or little extra bits in games. Like, the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head is in the Spider-Man games where you have to rewire circuit boards. Stuff like that, yeah, it's part of the game, but it's not the core aspect of it. And with a Doctor Who game, stuff like that would have to be, I think at least. The other option is if you don't control the Doctor, which we've seen recently with the VR game. What is it? Edge of Time, Edge of Destruction, Edge of Reality, Edge of Tomorrow, I don't know, I can't remember the actual name of it. It's Edge of something. But it doesn't get you off the edge of your seat, let's put it that way. Now the thing is, in terms of like a VR game, or even like a point and click Doctor Who game, something like that, that could potentially work, where the Doctor is out of action and you, the player, you're the one who has to save the day. Stuff like that could work, but again, you do run the risk of it being incredibly repetitive and incredibly dull if you end up doing the same types of missions over and over again. Find this thing, rewire this, you know, locate this item. I think I already said that, but see, even I'm thinking it's very fucking repetitive. So in terms of how would a Doctor Who game look or work, there's possibilities out there, but I just feel that every single option that you can potentially take would be a lackluster game, unless, and I think this is something that I potentially would want to see, but instead of doing a Doctor Who game in the traditional sense of you are playing as the Doctor or you're helping out the Doctor, what if you use it to explore the worlds of Doctor Who? You know, instead of it being a dedicated game to a Doctor's adventure, what about a game based on the Daleks or the Cybermen or some of these other famous aliens and monsters that we've seen over the years? Instead of it being a game where it's like you get in a TARDIS and you travel wherever, and or you get put in a location and you have to figure out what's going on and you incorporate all these different monsters, what if you were a Khaled on Skaro? What if you were someone on Mondas? Maybe it was a secret agency on Mondas who learn about what's going to happen with the Cybermen, and you have to try and stop it, and you have to face obstacles, and then you could incorporate some more of the violent aspect where you are fighting these things and you can get away with, you know, punching stuff and kicking stuff and using weapons. Maybe it's because the type of games that I play, I am sort of used to the sort of fighting mechanic, but like I say, it doesn't quite work for Doctor Who. So instead of trying to put Doctor Who on some of these not so interesting aspects of games, what if you do incorporate all of that stuff but without the Doctor? That could potentially work. Oh my god, a Sontaran game. They're bred for war. All they do is war. Imagine like you play as a Sontaran and you have to work your way up through the ranks as a Sontaran, leading your army to battle, fighting off against Rutons and whoever else it might be. The only problem is then, is a Sontaran game gonna be enough in terms of the general public? Like, are people gonna buy that? Doctor Who fans? Yeah, they probably would. Would the general audience? The same way that they'd flock out and buy, I don't know, The Witcher or Assassin's Creed or Grand Theft Auto. Does it have the same appeal? Maybe with the Doctor Who name, but when people realise that the game has not a lot to do with the Doctor and the TARDIS and time travel, maybe not. But then again, you could even do something along the lines of Portal, maybe? Something like that? I don't know. There's so many possibilities. One thing that I will say is though, please, whoever, you know, if you're watching this video and you have something to do with the creation of Doctor Who games, whether it is at the BBC or wherever it might be, at Sony, you know, with the PlayStation, or Microsoft with Xbox, Nintendo, whatever, don't do another Top Trumps game. I know that's going to be sacrilege to some people, but my god, was that thing so disappointing. Because it was literally just, you're playing Top Trumps on a PlayStation. Like, you can just go to Waterstones, WH Smith, wherever it might be, and you can pick up a pack of Doctor Who Top Trump cards and do the exact same thing. But yeah, for me, I don't really know exactly what you could do or what exactly would work. I think there's definitely a market for it, and I do think that, you know, with especially the time travel aspect or just the worlds of Doctor Who, you could definitely do something. But similar to the Telltale games, actually, you know, like they did, what was it? They did The Walking Dead. I think they did Batman. Did they do Spider-Man? I know they did Guardians of the Galaxy. But maybe something like that, where it's episodic and it is a sort of more simple game where it's like you have to make decisions, and the decisions that you make determine how the story goes. Actually, on paper, that sounds like the best. Save the best to last, I guess. That was the one that I just thought of now and thought, actually, yeah, no, do that. Yeah, Telltale, if you're watching. Wait, do they still exist? I feel like they don't. I could be wrong though. But someone, look at something like The Walking Dead or Guardians or Batman, whichever one it was, whichever one you thought was the best, and just do that but for Doctor Who. Yeah, there we go, sorted. There's the answer to your question. What should a Doctor Who game look like? That. In the comments below though, guys, let me know what you think. How would you want a Doctor Who game? Do you agree with some of the problems or the solutions that I've potentially come up with, or a totally new idea that I haven't even thought of? Whatever it might be, let me know down below. Although someone's going to say like a full-on dedicated Doctor Who Lego game, No, that was fine for what it was, but it was just a Lego game with a Doctor Who skin. Like, I want a proper dedicated Doctor Who game. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon links will be in the description, as always. So if you'd follow me on any of those things, I'd absolutely love you forever. But until next time, guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye.